Hello everyone, my name is Peter Malinowski. I'm the editor of meditationresearch.org.uk, the one-stop hub for everything you need to know about scientific research into meditation. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to explain mindfulness meditation and how we can look at it from a psychological and a neuroscientific perspective. In the second part of the video, I will be using a diagram that makes it completely clear why it is meaningful to meditate regularly, what happens in the brain when we do so and things like this. And I'm sure you will be interested in the point that actually I will make this diagram available for download to everyone who wants to use it themselves. As scientists, it's very important that we really know and understand and explain what we are talking about. When it comes to mindfulness meditation, we often say that mindfulness is the awareness that arises when we pay attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally to the unfolding of experience moment to moment. This is a very often used description, and there is a very powerful model that I only can recommend to use that actually explains what is meant in more detail. This model is in a way quite simple, but it is straight to the point, and I would say that everyone who practices mindfulness meditation, and even more importantly, everyone who teaches mindfulness meditation, needs to be aware of this model. And this model, first of all, it just includes three key components, and these components are intention, attention, and attitude. So we often also say it is the IAA model. Yeah, and when we say intention, actually this relates back to the definition I just mentioned before. It is the intention of paying purposeful attention in the moment. So purpose and attention there are very closely linked to each other. Yeah. So, but intention has another component, and this is the intention or the motivation why people engage in mindfulness meditation practice at all. And everyone who has looked a bit into the different mindfulness offers that people come to mindfulness meditation for many different reasons. But for instance, when we start offering mindfulness courses, then actually it is incredibly important that we speak to the intention our participants, our clients, our customers bring to the situation. So if we don't do this, if we can't relate what we offer to the intention of the clients, we may use them very rapidly. Or if we look at it from the other perspective, if I as a meditator, if I am not clear what my intention is, what my motivation is to really engage with the practice, my mindfulness practice will not have much power, and I would even go that far to say that if I don't have a clear intention, I will not regularly meditate. So I would say intention is an incredibly important component, and when I'm designing a mindfulness program, I pay close attention to intention to make sure that I know why I am offering it in this particular way to my clients and how I convey it to them, how I make clear that mindfulness meditation is relevant to their intention. Incredibly important if we are aiming for long-term engagement with mindfulness practice. The second component of the IAA model is attention, and of course this is very, very important, the aspect of paying attention. Some people might say more broadly also concentration, but attention is a very important aspect, that actually we bring very clear attention to the moment of experience. And I will come back to this in the second part of the video to go into a bit more details what science has to say about the attention aspect. Now, the third component of the IAA model is attitude. And attitude means that it's not only about paying attention, and here mindfulness is different to some other forms of meditation that are very, very concentration focused. Yes, so here the very strong focus is on how we pay attention. And the idea is, and the key actually is, that we pay attention with an open, curious, non-judging, accepting attitude. With other words, that when we are in the meditation practice, that we are open to any experience that arises, whether we like it or we don't like it, we want it, we don't want it, whether it's pleasant, whether it's unpleasant. It just doesn't matter. The practice is to keep our attention with purpose or intentionally in the moment of experience, while keeping an open, accepting attitude to whatever might arise. So it's not then about chasing the pleasant experiences that might arise, not being concerned about the unpleasant experiences that might arise, but actually being open to whatever arises. And then this interplays with the attention aspect, that actually we maintain this stable attention so that whatever arises is experienced, but without being pulled in by it. Yeah? So being open, curious, but not engaged with whatever experience arises. And these 3 points, they are crucial. These 3 aspects they are crucial. Intention, we pay attention with clear intention of doing so. We bring the intention to the situation while we're meditating in the first place. We regulate our attention so that we are with the experience, that we are not carried away by thoughts, worries, hopes, fears, expectations, and what else can arise in mind. And that whatever arises in our experience, thoughts, feelings, pictures, memories, ideas, whatever it might be, that we meet it with curiosity, with openness, with acceptance, without judging it, without pushing it away, without holding on to some experiences, without elaborating what the experiences are, but just keeping the stable focus of attention. When people start engaging with mindfulness meditation practice, usually what is required is some practice in stabilizing attention, because our mind is so much accustomed to focus on anything that arises. So our mind is quite wild. It jumps here and there and everywhere. Our attention moves here and there and everywhere. So just to keep the attention stable in one point is not something we are usually used to. Or if we pay attention stably on one point, it's usually because what we pay attention to sucks us in. It is usually because something is so interesting, maybe a movie, maybe a football match, whatever it might be, it is so interesting that it attracts our attention. So that it's actually the power of the stimulus that pulls our attention. But here we are talking about attention that is stable independently of stimulation, independently of something exciting happening, just stable, clear, vivid attention. So I developed a diagram that shows from a psychological perspective and from the neuroscientific perspective what actually happens when we engage, what happens with our attention when we engage in mindfulness meditation. Yeah, so, and here, if you look at this diagram, it consists of 3 circles, and the inner circle, first of all, it expresses our phenomenology. It expresses what we experience, or also one can say it expresses what a meditation teacher would instruct us. And first of all, it starts at the top here with focusing on an object. Very often when we start meditating, this object might be the breath. Yeah? So there are many reasons why the breath is a useful object, but I'm not going into this now. It is here at this point, it is just about choosing an object and staying with our attention on this object. This doesn't mean to analyze the object, it doesn't mean to think about the object, but just to have a reference point or an anchor where we rest the focus of our attention. So if we do this, then we will recognize, and this is the second, the green point, that our mind tends to wander off. Yeah? And then the next thing, the red part, is actually that we recognize that our mind has wandered off. Yeah? So our mind wanders off, and sooner or later we become aware that the mind has wandered off. And the next thing then is in orange, seen here in orange, that actually we let go of whatever our mind was attracted to. And then as a final point, we orient our attention back, we bring our attention back, we return our attention back to the object we focused on. Let's say the sensation of the breath. Yeah? So a very simple process. And from cognitive psychology, we understand all the attentional and cognitive functions that are involved in this process. And this is the middle circle. Yes, so it's first of all a function that we call sustaining attention. So where the attention is stably sustained on an object, then sooner or later, as I said, a distraction arises. And then our monitoring function, or cognitive monitoring as we call it often, detects that we have been distracted. And then another function, so-called the disengaging of attention, in orange here, is the function of removing the focus of attention from the distracting object. And we know from neuropsychology, from studies with brain-injured patients, that this is a distinct function, because it can selectively be impaired, in particular in patients who had a right hemispheric brain lesion. Yeah? So this disengaging function is incredibly important, the ability to disengage from the object where our attention was engaged. And then the next function is the shifting of attention back to the object, back to the breath, let's say. That's the next point. Now, it gets even more interesting because from cognitive neuroscience, we know that actually these 5 steps or these 5 cognitive functions, and there we come to the outer circle, that these cognitive functions, they are related to different brain networks. So first of all, on top, the blue one, the blue area there this is the so-called alerting network. And the alerting network, basically, this maintains, well, as the name suggests, the level of alertness and allows us to sustain attention, to focus on an object. Then the next network here depicted in green is the so-called default mode network. And that's a quite interesting name. It's quite telling in a way, because neuroscientists call it the default mode network because we realized that it is our default mode. Usually our mind is quite distracted. It is busy with inner chatter, with self-referential thought, as we often call it. Yeah? So, and from the neuroscience perspective, we even see this as a default mode. So when nothing else is going on, then the inner chatter starts. I guess this doesn't come as a complete surprise, but what we now know is that actually this is realized by a widely distributed network in the brain, the so-called default mode network. Then there is a third brain network, the so-called salience network, that actually catches when something that is behaviorally relevant at the moment appears. Yeah? Something that's particularly salient for our momentary situation. If something like this arises, this network kicks in. Yeah? So, and if we think about the situation of meditation where we decided, full of intention, that we want to focus on the object, then what is a particularly salient event? This is, of course, when our mind is distracted, has wandered off, because basically we forgot about the actual intention of our meditation. Yeah? It slipped into the background, and it is a salient event. So in the moment this is detected, the salience network is active, and then as the next step, the executive control network initiates the disengagement of the attentional focus from the distracting thoughts or other objects and so on. The disengagement, and then the so-called orienting network, it reorients our attention back to the object we aim to focus on. Yeah. So, and now if we are practicing mindfulness meditation to understand this circularity of the process is very, very important. So usually people might think, if they have never meditated or haven't meditated for a while, that actually getting distracted during the meditation is a problem, is a failure even. But this actually, if we understand the circularity, this is not the case. Every time we are distracted, in sequence, we can practice the different components, and we will practice the different components of this circular process. This means the more often we are distracted, the more often we can recognize that we are distracted. So more often the salience network becomes active. More often the executive control network becomes active, more often the orienting network becomes active, and then we come back to the alerting network. Yes, so actually with every distraction that we detect, we strengthen these networks. And the process of detecting, letting go, reorienting of attention becomes more and more automatic. And what also happens is that the monitoring function, so our ability to detect mind wandering, to detect distraction, will become more and more fine-tuned, will become more and more sensitive. And over time, then fewer and fewer adjustments will be needed. So this process going through might become more and more subtle. And of course also more and more stability will arise. So the alerting function will become more and more prominent, and levels of alertness will become more and more stable. But it all depends on going through this circular process again and again and again and again. So, and by running through this cycle again and again, these different networks that are involved in this are being strengthened. So now it's not about going into all the neuroscience of these different networks, but what I would like to say is, and actually recommend to you, is actually to have a look at the diagrams that I showed you here, that I produced. I put all this together into such a what I would call an explainer pack that everyone can download for free. It consists of a poster, for printing out in different sizes. It also consists of a 4-page document that explains briefly what I now explained in a bit more detail. And everyone is free to download it, to use it. And I produced another video where I will say a few more words about this explainer pack. So if you're interested in this, then head to the next video, or you can also check the link to my website down there, meditationresearch.org.uk, where you can find a lot of information about all these aspects, all the research related to meditation research. If you think this was useful, you may want to subscribe to the channel and get information when a new video is uploaded. I hope it was useful and enjoy.